I'm back and I have a dragon mug. And I'm Thorn. I use he, him, his, and this is probably episode 15 of the Midnight Ballroom podcast. Before I forget, image close-up and image description time. My mug is shaped like a black cauldron, not the book or the Welsh and or Irish folkloric item, just a black cauldron with a handle because it's a coffee mug, and there's a bluish white dragon on one side and a Celtic lurking circle design on the back that says Wheel of the Year, Winter Solstice, I think. I'm kind of reading it backwards, so. Anyway, the art is by Anne Stokes, one of my favorite gothy artists, who is... I also have a tarot deck by her, and two of the same notebook, which was the first thing I found by her, and yeah. And oh yeah, she's from, I think she's German, somewhere around there. My friend who currently lives in I get confused between two countries that I know have nothing to do with each other, but one is the Netherlands and the other one is Denmark, because I'm like, wait, Dutch, Danish? I know they're separate, but I'm like, my brain goes, but they both start with D, right? So, anyway, my friend who lives there got this awesome mug for me, and I'm very happy. My other mug, since we're going straight into coffee break this time, is from Cracker Barrel. A little bit closer to home, but not much, because I live in California, and Cracker Barrel is not in this state. But I have family roots in other states where Cracker Barrel is. Also where other things are, but Cracker Barrel is the important thing, right? This is a mermaid looking away. Oh, this is a coffee mug with a mermaid on it, looking away from the viewer and holding a sea star. She has long red hair. And the thing I love about this is that it's a glazed ceramic mug, and the mermaid is kind of 3D, like slightly sculpted out of the cup, which is just really cool. It's like really subtle and artistic, which I say because before I showed it to one of my friends, I had someone worried that the the mermaid who is nude, at least on the top, was not going to be tasteful, and that's not a worry about oh, we shouldn't show bodies, but just like a worry about, oh, is this going to look like objectification. But no, I think it's actually really well done, and a gorgeous cup mug. That friend is actually from this charity or non-profit org, 580 Cafe, which is where my third mug, which does not have coffee, it just has Diet Coke, and it is from. It's a blue mug with a yellow logo of a coffee cup with a heart coming out of it, and it says 580 Cafe. It sort of like a food closet and a study space for this to help students and their families in a certain area of LA. But it's a lot more than that. It's just such a really wonderful community, and I've had a lot of really good like friends and people I've learned from there. So that's one of the parts of my old life before the pandemic and before leaving my ex that I will miss. Like I still see them on Zoom sometimes. Currently trying to get in touch with someone to be like, okay, so when are the Zoom meetings happening? But anyway, they're one of the groups I consider my chosen family. I didn't expect to say all that, but that was cool. Oh right, this is my co-goat, Banros. He's a little beanie baby goat. And Banros is a name from this. It fell out of my hand as I was bringing it up, and now it's crumpled. It's a book. At least some of the pages are. I mean, it's still very important to me. But like, that's not fun. Can't wait till I have more space where I won't constantly be bumping into things. Anyway, this book, the title is Vicaro. It's by Brian Hewitt, my chosen brother, and it's well, I've talked about it in previous episodes of this podcast, but it's very important to my spiritual path, which I didn't know it would be before I started reading it, but it just kind of happened. And they wrote it as an act of service to their gods, and it's just a really wonderful book. And anyway, there's a goat herd boy named Banros, so I figured since this beanie baby goat didn't have a name yet, even though I've had him for several years, maybe he was just waiting for the right moment to have that name. So yeah, last time I was out back at sunset, and it's kind of nice that I have enough energy tonight to film at my normal time, because I don't feel like I can go deeper into the kinds of musings I like to go into in this podcast when I'm filming during the day and I don't know who else is around. But also being out back, I mean, it was nice, but there was so much ambient noise that I'm sure that it just wasn't accessible to some people, either for hearing issues or like sensory issues, which I also have a lot of. So yeah, I thought I'd just briefly recap what I said then. A bit later I'll be showing you the two things I brought outside last time to show you, which is the Nalbinding and the completed Gwyn graphgan. Then let's see, I talked a bit about my future plans and my rekindling my old interest in permaculture. So I've got a bunch of cuttings now, and I'm trying to learn about how to propagate plants, because it'd be so cool to just have my own little kitchen garden. Even if I'm in an apartment, I could grow it on my balcony or something, and like that would help a lot with knowing that I can take care of myself. Not that I don't, not like in a doomsday prepper, like I want to live off the grid way, just like knowing that I have the agency to be able to. Well, it's not just agency, because like sometimes there are systemic challenges or just reasons why people can't just go do the thing, but like I just knowing that I can have the resources that I need, whether that's things or people. Not to compare people to things, but like the community is a really important part of survival when you're any kind of marginalized group. So anyway, and apparently it's really easy to grow sweet potatoes. Like you can grow tons of them from a single sweet potato, and I'm excited about that because I love those. It's one of my favorite foods. So right, I also I'm stuttering right now too, but I was stuttering really bad last time, and like I try and be a role model of self-acceptance with my stuttering, and kind of raise awareness and just let people feel seen, because I didn't have that growing up. But also I'm at the same time I still struggle with the internalized shame and stuff. So it was kind of an exercise in like working through some shadow, I guess, well, while I was editing that episode. And it usually is, but it was particularly intense that time. And right, what else did I want to touch on from last time? Right, I decided that I'd like to share a little bit more about my situation. I've been really cautious about not wanting to, vent in a way that feels uncomfortable for the viewer, or like just trauma dump. So I'm not trying to do that. But also, if you don't want to hear this, or want to skip at either now or at any point, feel free to just skip to the next chapter. And I'll try to just keep it in one section. But I do think it's important for me to balance the reasons not to share too much about it, which are important, and some of them are safety, which sounds bad, and it is, but that's kind of, it is what it is. But I have to balance that with the toll it takes to keep all this hidden, and not that I don't share it with people, just like in private settings, but I have to constantly think about how much can I say, not just in public, but also around most of the people I live with, which is not fun. So yeah, I mentioned just with words on the screen last time a bit more than I usually say. Like I mentioned misgendering, which, I'm trans, so there's some of that. And I also mentioned a word that I don't like saying out loud because I don't think anyone's around, but I just it's not a word that people like to hear. If it applies to them. And there are many words that, like, that's a valid reaction to have, but this isn't that type of word. I'm going to put it on the screen, and if you can't, like, if you can't see the screen, I'm trying to think of how to allude to it. Begins with H. It is considered a disorder. Pausing so that I'm less likely to be overheard in one sentence. If I am overheard, if you're worried about my safety, like, don't worry. I am thinking. I'm not too worried. I'm just, like, being cautious. But it does suck that I have to be worried at all. So, anyway, if you think of a house that's clean and tidy, it's not that. So hopefully those are enough clues. So anyway, that's been the situation my whole life, which has been fun. And by fun I mean not fun. So when I talk about how I'm like, yeah, I'm just in a small space in my parents' living room, I'm like, yeah, all my stuff is crammed in here. Because it's not a small house, but there's not a lot of space if you take my meaning. And what space there is not really used the way it's intended to be used, or like there's a lot of obstruction and just things in unexpected and incorrect places. And appliances that are just not in good working order, and not because of money. It's a different issue. So it's a lot to deal with, just mentally and physically. Just it feels like an obstacle course sometimes, trying to walk back and forth. So the positive thing is that through a lot of internal healing of my own, I've learned that I can let things go when I need to. And sometimes it's things that are extremely difficult to let go, such as like not really things, but like my relationships with folks that I know are just causing harm to me, and it's not going to ever be what I want it to be, even though I don't give up on people quickly. Most of the time it takes years and years of me trying to reach out and say, hey, this thing you're doing is making me feel hurt, or like I feel it's causing harm to me, or I'd like to set this boundary. And it's taken many years to get to the point where I realized, yeah, the people in question are not going to listen. It's not a matter of me finding a different way of saying it that they'll finally understand, which is what I thought for a long time, but it's not that. So you can see why I'm sort of desperate to move out. But anyway, the nice thing is I know that when I'm in my own place, even if it's a small room, I know that I'll be able to use the space well and just have things that bring me joy and that I use. And like I'll be able to not have key areas like the kitchen sink blocked and have to move something out of the way and then stumble over the groceries that weren't put away. As I'm trying to do dishes. I do a lot of dishes. It's intense. But anyway. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else before I move on. But oh yeah, I know that I'll be moving out soon, hopefully before Halloween. That's where all the signs are pointing, which is great because I'll get to decorate my new place with the Halloween stuff, but for all year round, because and but yeah, there was a surprising change in my situation, which I'm not sure how much I can say about it, but it is quite positive, and I'm waiting to hear from the other party. Like, documents have been signed, and it is for sure that this is happening in quite a bit less than 30 days now, but like it could be sooner, but that's the time limit. So I'm kind of like, come on. I want to start looking at places to live, so I know that I'm like, I want to keep moving forward so I can get to a place that feels safer, because it's really hard not being able to let your guard down most of the time in your own house. And it doesn't have to be like physical things happening to have that feeling. Like, there's a lot of other kinds of a word that I'm not going to say, but I'll put it here. Basically the grown-up version of bullying. It starts with A, and I think bullying is the same thing, but this has a more serious connotation, and it feels weird being open about this, but I do think that's what I've been experiencing here. It is slightly better in some ways than being with my ex, but like, can't wait to be in my own space near my chosen family and start my new life. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about that. Thanks for listening, or welcome if you skipped ahead. I have a fun surprise to lighten the mood. One of my best friends had top surgery and is currently recovering. They're the one that helped me with my surgery last year, and they love to cook and bake, and they have a small black cat, so I made them a cake. I don't bake, not with an oven that doesn't work. I mean, I do bake, just not here, for reasons. I'm sorry, I said I wouldn't keep talking about life circumstances after. Anyway, that's all. But I do make cakes with crochet now, apparently. So this is a small amigurumi cake, about a couple inches across and a couple inches high. It's round, and it's made of purple, like lavender sparkly yarn, and has sort of a rainbow pastel icing edging, and it has the head of a small black cat in the center with three roses, which were made by me chaining a bunch of, like, a long line, and then double crocheting down the line and then twisting that strip of fabric of it is fabric when you've used yarn to make it, right? Anyway, twisting that strip of stuff into a spiral, and that's the rose. And the black cat has a couple of bead eyes, which are a little bit too big for his head, but that's perfect because it captures his expression really well. This particular cat is always like he shows up looking like he just woke up from one of those bog witch naps, as my friends and I call them, where you're, for me at least, it's when my blood sugar has dropped. I'm not the condition with the blood sugar where you need insulin. For some reason I can't say it right now, but as far as I know I don't have that, but sometimes I do, just like everything feels like my brain almost hurts because I'm like, I probably need to eat either sugar or protein or both. I don't know if it's a neurodivergent thing or what, but anyway, one of those naps. So he looks like he woke up the cat, and he's not quite sure what's real yet, but he just comes out and he's like, and he constantly meows. We call it peeping. So he constantly peeps, and he sounds like a human trying to imitate a cat. Something like meh, 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 and he'll just talk all the time. It's really cute. So I just randomly got inspired and decided to make this. My ring light just turned off, and it could be because my laptop was sleeping, and maybe the ring light was drawing power from it. It uses a USB to plug into the laptop, so. There. I usually use the golden light because otherwise I look washed out. So I was gonna look up the site that I got the cake pattern from. The only thing I did myself was the cat head. It's stringydingding.com. Cake amigurumi free crochet pattern. So I don't know if there are other cute little dessert crochet items, but that would be awesome. For some reason, I just really love crafting cute desserts that aren't actually food, but they, like, you use either yarn or like other things to make them look really good. So I was extremely passionate about can I say it? Lolita fashion a few years back, and I do still love it. It's just that I realized that currently my dysphoria won't let me wear that. I wouldn't mind trying to build a boy style wardrobe, but the dresses I'll currently just enjoy on other people. So I love the gothic sub-style, of course, but one of the other major three sub-styles. There's Gothic, Classic, and Sweet. And for a while there was a trend that people were not sure what to think about, but I think it's awesome. But where sweet lolitas were wearing headdresses that looked like cake, and I just love that. Like, yeah, do it. That's kind of what this is. I forget. Actually, I think I do know who I bought it from, and I'll try to find their info if I can. This amazing little headdress that looks like a round tart, and it has a golden chain running across it, across the icing that used to be in a pentagram shape, but it like several of the points got undone, like unattached somehow, and I'm not sure how to fix it, but I've worn it out places and have gotten a lot of compliments. But I liked how that was kind of the gothy, witchy version of the cake on head. I was looking at the time to make sure that I don't run out. Anyway, I showed you my Nalbinding last time, and now it has a border of different yarn. It's still the wool that came from my friend, but it's just a different color. So currently this just looks like a big, roughly doily made of this simple looping stitch, which is kind of mesh, and it's made of gray brown black wool. It's kind of a motley of those colors. And what I like is that it has bits where it kind of, like, some threads look kind of coppery, which is really cool. And then in this white, like soft whitish silver wool, you have some threads that are just really shiny and bright. And I think this might actually be some kind of tinsel or metallic strand in this yarn, because I'm not sure how, like, I haven't been up close with too many wool animals, but I'm not sure. It doesn't look as natural to me as the copper does in this one, but either way, it's really pretty. And I figured when I ran out of the black, grayish brown wool, this one was a similar weight and a similar level of both fuzz and shine, so I felt like it would fit. So yeah, this is my Nalbinding project. I'm planning to just keep going until it kind of, the sides kind of fold up and it becomes a bag. This is my first project, so I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm having great fun. Speaking of ancient crafts, I was making a basket, but I'm not sure. Like, there's a giant hole in the middle, so I'm not sure what this is going to be, but it's made of pine needles, because we have so many out back from our pine trees, and so I soaked a bunch of them, and I didn't use nearly as many as I soaked, and you kind of have to soak them and use them, and you can't really re-soak them, but the pine needles Oh, and this is like a currently it's a disc with pine needles kind of gently twisted into cordage and then woven, shaped into a spiral, and then this wool, which is also grayish black, but a lot thicker than the one I'm using for null binding, is woven. Anyway, this wool is woven around each bit of the pine needles, and that was to stop the ends from sticking out too much, like when I had to add in another section of needles. And they'll kind of stay in the middle where they twist together, but in the ends of each strand they'll kind of stick out, so I wanted to make sure it was a bit more secure. But yeah, they do have some natural flexibility, so I think soaking them did help, but I also think I might be able to get away with doing more with them when they're a bit more dry than like some basket making materials you really have to only work with when you've soaked them, because they are so brittle. Like I saw someone, I'll put the video here. She Sally Pointer, she's one of my new inspirations. I saw her make a basket out of dried lavender stalks, and if you don't soak them, those are they will just snap so easily. And I am drawing a bunch of lavender stalks to try and make a basket, because I'm also drawing some grass stalks that I gathered from outside. We have a couple of big lavender bushes outside, and that brings me to my other hobby, or I guess back to permaculture. Like currently on my window there are all these cuttings. My sister helpfully lended me the jars they're currently in. I have learned that there are some things I could be doing better. I've been watching a lot of Morag Gamble's YouTube channel, which is all about teaching people about permaculture, and she just has this lovely soothing voice and like gracious way about her. I just love like doing my thing, maybe crocheting or nail binding, and listening to her tell me about the different types of plants, and yeah. So I've learned that like it's better for cuttings if you don't have too many leaves on them, because it's stressful to try and maintain all of those leaves when they're also trying to put out new roots. So also I could just add them directly to the soil and see how that goes. Just like make sure to water it. I have a pot out there that is currently trying to grow some olive cuttings, because we have a bunch of olive trees around, and I think it'd be really cool to take some of the olive trees that I grew up knowing in a way that was very spiritual, but I didn't really know what I was doing. But in a way, it'd be cool if I can propagate some of them, and I'm trying to make sure I have a lot of plant diversity in one spot. So I could just, for now at least, put all these cuttings in the same pot and then see what happens, and if they kind of work with each other and just kind of help each other. And if it doesn't work, I'll just try something different. Wow, this it's already 40 minutes, so I should show you my Gwyn graphgan before we run out of time. I did finish it. Well, I finished the border, which is this purple pineapple lace, and then I edged it with the black sparkly yarn to just make a small picot border, and I'm still finding grass seed heads from last time. Like they stick in everything. Oh, that's where this one is. I'm like, something's poking me. You may chuckle if you wish, if your brain is like mine, and considering who this blanket depicts, it is pretty funny. Anyway, so this is my patron god, Gwyn ap Nudd. Image description: starry sky and crescent moon behind him. It's a picture of it's a graphgan that shows a chart that's based on my pixel art that I drew of him, and it's a portrait. Basically, he has wild hair, and it's all in like grays and whites and blacks and purples. Very Ace Pride. I'm not Ace, but it's kind of cool that it turned out that way. And he's in this one, he's shirtless and has a dragon tattoo on his chest and a couple of piercings, I think, and a little like smile. So I call this one Modern Wild Hunt because it's based on I guess vision, but just like an image I had of him one time. It wasn't just one time, but one time I was talking to him and he suddenly appeared to me in this like goth biker form, and I realized his motorcycle was actually his horse. D Maroed. That's one of his two horses in Welsh mythology. The only horse that he will ride, at least in this context, and this horse like won't have anyone ride him but Gwyn. So basically, it's a horse girl movie, and Gwyn is a horse girl. You can't change my mind. I say that with great love and respect, because he is my patron god that I'm devoted to, and as I often mention on here, I'm a god spouse, which basically just means I'm showing my ring, which symbolizes that, and has some silver antlers on it, which get caught on everything, but I love them. So it basically means a spirit partner. I mean, that's another term for the same thing, like someone who's in a romantic or sexual or both relationship with some otherworldly being, whether a god or a spirit, and ancestor, you know, there there are lots of different options, and it's just one of the ways that people interact with the divine and the otherworldly. So yeah, that said, I love him so much. And so now you get why I was cracking up when I said, when I earlier it was like I'm here with my graphgan of my patron god slash husband, because that is how I think of him, and something's poking me because it was out in the grass with with all the seed heads, which are sharp. Anyway, so apparently it's that kind of night. I was talking to my friend earlier. Anyway. Right, I had one more update on a project from months ago. You may remember this tunic that I was going to cross stitch one of my other Gwyn portraits on. It's a black sleeveless tunic type thing. It had sleeves, but I cut them off because I don't like sleeves. And I began gridding it just to have some guide for the cross stitches, but I realized it won't work, and the reason is not because of how difficult it is to grid a non-gridded fabric. Or I mean, gridding I think is technically like you have a piece of fabric that already has the squares that you need for cross stitch, and then you're just taking extra time to divide them up into like boxes of 10 or 5. But for me, I was trying to just create the whole grid, and I would have been willing to do that, but this fabric is too fragile for that much thread, I think, and I noticed it was starting to tear. So I'm just gonna take out the red thread that I was using for the grid, because I mean it does look kind of cool, but it wasn't really supposed to be like a decorative element. And I've been meaning to do this for a while, so I'm just going to do it now. And I'm just going to wear it as is, as a tunic, because it's nice to have loose tunic type pieces for summer, because I realized I really love that type of garment, and I'm like, especially while I'm building up my wardrobe, I'd like to have all of them that I can, so I have options for the extremely hot days, which there are many in California. Oh yeah, I started talking a little bit last time about how it's interesting that I live in a place which has a climate that is not really talked about or known in the wider culture, I guess, that I live in, and I'm used to seeing stories set in. Like, I grew up hearing about places that have four seasons, and I knew that it was quote unquote normal to have snow in the winter, but I never had that. So I was like, well, I mean that's normal, but we don't have it here, so we're just not normal, I guess. And now I've realized, you know, it's just a different climate. But it is so, I guess, normalized to have the 4 seasons, and one of them's cold, and that's when things die. Whereas here, you basically have two seasons: the wet, cold, or not cold but cooler season. It does get chilly, but not nearly as much as other places. So you have the rainy, cool season and the hot, dry season, and the second one is when things die, because no one's going to compete with the hot desert sun. It's just no, that we're going to go away and wait for the autumn rains, when things will bloom back to life. Then you have things that were imported from other climates where they do have a colder winter. Like, I'm mainly thinking of trees that I see turning red in the autumn, and I love that. Like, it's gorgeous, and I don't want them to stop doing that, but I'm also like, well, that you're clearly preparing for a climate that is not the one that you currently live in. I don't know if any of the native trees around here turn red in the autumn. They might. I just don't know. I'm very new to this whole gardening thing, but it's really cool. And what made me think of this actually was the person I mentioned earlier, Morag Gamble, which is an awesome name. I think it's really cool that, like, so she tries to teach for all climates, but she happens to live in Australia. Apparently, a lot of like permaculture started there, so I've been finding a lot of really good permaculture stuff in Australia and New Zealand. So she mentioned at one point that she lives in a subtropical climate, and I was like, I feel like a lot of the things she says about her garden and her climate resonate really well with me. So I should go look up what climate I live in. And it turns out it is a subtropical, also called Mediterranean climate, in the Los Angeles area. And it'll be the same for me in the Bay Area, but it will be a bit cooler. So, like, there's this classification system where you have the CS, slightly awkward acronym, but you have the CSA and the CSB. So, like, there's the hot dry summer and the cool dry summer, and so San Fran is mostly the CSB, which is the cool dry summer, which is great. But here in LA, it varies by region. But California is kind of a weird state for many reasons. But I mean, I love California, but like, I was noticing that it really is the change point between the A and the B type of climate of this one type. Everything north of us that still has this type of subtropical climate is in the B category, and everything south of us, at least I could be wrong about this, but I think everything south of us is like the warmer A version of the climate. So yeah, we're kind of the changeover. Now I have the black thread, which I was doing part of the grid with, and it's much harder to get out because by the time I was doing the red thread, I was just doing it very loosely because I knew that I wouldn't be keeping it. But with the black thread, I was thinking, well, I might like the look of the grid, so I might want to keep it. So I was trying to do it more neatly, which means that it's more secure, which would be great if I didn't want to take it out. But anyway, it is nice to almost be done with this. Like, it's been sitting in my basket for months just because I haven't known what to do with it. And yeah, I can still see some holes from where the thread was, but especially for a casual tunic, I don't think that's too bad, and this may just be a placeholder in my wardrobe while I keep building it. I've been wanting to build like my dream gothic wardrobe for so long, and my interest in Lolita fashion was part of that. And then I transitioned in the middle of that, so that was hard. And then I was in an abusive relationship for several years, so that was hard. And now I'm like, finally. And crochet is giving me a lot of options I didn't think I had before, which is great. So, yeah. Speaking of, I am working on my crochet along design process blog for my second draft of the Pumpkin Moonlight Poet shirt. It's underneath a basket of pine needles because that's my life. But you can find it on my other channel, which is the more crochet focused one, Thornwing Crochet. And I'm working on editing the third part of that series, which takes us all the way through the right front panel, which is the first one that we've been doing. So if you want to be part of that process and maybe make a poet shirt with me, that'd be cool to have you over there. Also, that channel has over 100 subscribers now. I passed 100 on Wednesday, which is 3 days ago from now. And I have people telling me, "Oh, I love your stuff. I just found you and I've watched all of your videos." And I'm like, "Oh, I do that with people I'm a super fan of that I have just found and been like, yes, this person gets it. I feel seen." So apparently, I'm having that reaction in people, or inspiring that reaction, and that's what I want for like deeply personal, happy reasons, as well as it is, it is good for, business and building my channel and brand. And that's important. I do need to make my livelihood, but like also I'm just really happy that I'm finding my people, or that my people are finding me, and I get to inspire people and help them feel seen. Like, I think that's one thing I'm really good at, and I want to keep doing that. So yeah. Let's see how many more threads we have. I think it's okay if this one's a longer one, the episode. I mean, I'm almost done, but like, I just thought of something really funny that happened on the Alt-Knots Live a few days ago. I referenced the song shot through the heart, and people, a lot of people loved it. I mean, they loved the fact that I had brought it up, and like there was some fun conversation about that. I only know the song because of the abridged series. Like, it's the fan made um, loving parody version of the anime Hellsing Ultimate, which is a version of It's like a modern version of Dracula, kind of, with really hot character named Alucard, which is Dracula spelled backwards, and he's a really badass vampire with like lots of snark and humor. And I think I've had multiple dreams in which Gwyn visited me, pretending to be, or like under the guise of me dreaming about Alucard, before I knew who Gwyn was, and he asked me to be his apprentice, which is funny because I am Gwyn's apprentice now. I'll tell more about that later. But also, Alucard has an apprentice in the series, and she's the reason that I know the song in the abridged version. Like, she starts out human, and then in the first episode she's fatally wounded, and he makes the decision to change her into a vampire and take her on as his student. So it's really cool to see like what, like, kind of an inside look of someone learning to be a vampire, and like what does that look like, because a lot of times we kind of see things from the human's point of view but don't get to, like, I want to know from the point of view of the otherworldly being. So anyway, when she's shot, when because that's how she's wounded. The abridged version plays the song "Shot through the heart," just that one phrase, because that's basically what happens to her. So that's just really funny. Not to make light of it, but it's kind of that grim humor that, yeah. So that's fun. Oh, I almost forgot. We need the goat moment. I wonder if Banros will say the thing that I thought he was going to say last time, but then I couldn't remember what I had wanted, what I thought that he might say. I mean, if it felt right. But I'll just have to ask him and Gwyn if he wants to say that thing or something else, or anything this time. But anyway, this is the goat moment. I look forward to finding out what he said. Maybe it was interpretive goat dance. I'm not sure. There's a thing in the program I use to make art, which is GNU 2.0. It's a free open source, I think is the term. Anyway, it's a really cool program, and there's one. I've been using it for years, but there are still parts of it that I just haven't learned yet, because there's so much. And in one of the menus I found this thing called goat exercise, and I don't know if that's a common term digital art or if it's just a, a thing with this program, but I but what it did, because I did decide to try it out, was it changed a blue section to it changed a section which was blue to being yellow. So I guess that's, I was talking to my brother Brian at the time, and I can't remember what they said that was called, but they but we both agreed that it was a rather cool exercise for goats to do to change colors to the other colors. So yeah. Anyway, have a good night. Thanks for hanging out with me in the Midnight Ballroom, and let's dance again at the next midnight.